Senegal is grappling with unrest after a wave of protests by students over unpaid financial aid. Now, the situation has worsened this week after a student died during the chaos in the capital, Dakar. Prosecutors say Abdoulaye Ba fell from a dormitory as police clashed with students, but classmates insist officers beat him to death. The government has admitted there was police misconduct, and anger is growing among the youth, as our correspondent Sira Thierij reports from Dakar.
Social media footage that sent shockwaves through Senegal. The day protests at the Cheikh Anta Diop University in the capital Dakar turned deadly. Authorities closed the campus and sent thousands of students home, their studies on hold, their futures uncertain. Political science student Bourama Sonko hasn't received a scholarship in months. He was hoping to finish his degree this summer. Instead, he's back in his childhood home.
This is the room. We share it with two cousins and my uncle. Up there, that's my suitcase. And here are the books, which I used to prepare for my classes.
He is eager to start his career and support his family.
I'm very proud. The whole family's proud. But sadly, we don't know what will happen next.
Bourama is still in shock after the violence he experienced on campus. He says he was in his dorm when police stormed the building.
There were no protests, no stone throwing, nothing. Everybody stayed inside. We can't understand how the security forces could come and attack the students violently, some of them as young as 16. The way they burst in, it felt like they were dealing with criminals, which was not the case. These were students who were unhappy because the state owes them money.
Bourama was treated in hospital for a dislocated shoulder. He says his vision is still blurred. Rights groups in Senegal say the police used disproportionate force. The government ordered an inquiry, but for many students that's not enough. They say they helped the government get to power and now feel disappointed and betrayed. Ali Cisse is a master's student in public law. He says he was beaten by 5 police officers. Like Bourama, he was in his dorm. He shows his friends videos of his injuries. 3 years ago, he was part of the protests that helped get the current government elected. Back then, President Diomaye Faye and Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko promised to fight corruption and create better opportunities for young people.
The students are Senegal. The campus is Senegal in miniature. So it's the students who carried this struggle and brought it all across the country. To spread this ideology, which at the time we called the ideology of patriotism. We were promised better living conditions for students, in the teaching framework as well as socially. But we only see the opposite.
Senegal's economy is under strain, and young people who make up 3/4 of the population are bearing the cost. For many students, the government that once inspired hope now offers only uncertainty.
We're not asking for work, nor for money. All we want is solid institutions and proper reforms that are respected. And those who are in charge need to keep their campaign promises. We don't know where to go anymore. We don't know who to trust. Before we believed. Now we hesitate. That is the problem.
Just 2 of the students who don't know when they'll be able to finish their degrees. During the last protests, their campus remained closed for nearly 9 months.
Let's speak now to Chris Ogunmodede, analyst and consultant in Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for joining us, Chris. Is it a surprise that things have got to this point in Senegal?
No, not at all. This is a country that, in terms of its macroeconomics, has been growing steadily for some time, for close to a decade now, but those macroeconomic gains haven't trickled down to the people. Incomes have barely etched up. Public services, the quality of public services have declined. And there's been lots of political tension, as viewers may or may not be aware, over the last couple of years. In the last administration, the Macky Sall administration, fortunately, there was a peaceful transfer of power to the current administration of President Diomaye Faye, who promised so much on the campaign trail. He promised to tackle corruption, improve the economy to make sure that those macroeconomic gains were realized by the people, and to improve the quality of political institutions. By and large, he has struggled to do that. Most of the Senegalese people don't believe that he has realized the promises of what he talked about on the campaign trail. And so the protest at the university that led up to the death of a student was ultimately not that surprising, at least to me.
One of the things that would like to just check in on what's changed, the police intervention at this Sheikh Anta Diop University, how does that compare to how the previous administration would have responded to this kind of situation?
Well, on some level, there was an extensive, I would say, actually, degree of caution, considerably compared with the past. In Senegal is a country that's generally regarded as, stable, quote unquote, and it's regarded as, the armed forces, for instance, stay within their constitutional limits. But I've always felt like that framing, while generally true, ignores the significant amount of repression that actually happens by the non-military security forces in the country, who are known to, arbitrarily arrest people, torture them, and things of that nature. So there was a lot less of that in this instance, at least initially. What happened was when the protest started to escalate, and then there were allegations that the police beat up several students, including the student Abdoulaye Ba, who died, who a student group alleged was beaten by the police. Now, the Senegalese authorities say that's not what happened, that he jumped from the fourth floor of a building while students were being chased. Whether that is true or not, I suppose an investigation would clarify that, but those are the competing versions of what happened. So to answer the question, yes, to a certain degree, there was some restraint by the security forces, but that only goes so far.
And to the issue itself, the issue with the financial aid and just the government being able to deliver, to what extent can this current crisis, I mean, you've touched on it before, but to what extent can we blame this current crisis on what was inherited from the previous administration?
For sure, Senegal's educational institutions have had financial troubles dating back decades, really. So there's plenty of blame to go around to several administrations, but ultimately the question many Senegalese are asking is, how far do you go? This government campaigned on fixing, among other things, the country's educational institutions, making them more fit for the modern world and the modern economy. And thus many young Senegalese and even many older folks voted for them because they had been to these universities, their children had been to these universities, and they wanted to see them do better and produce good quality students who can compete in the modern economy. So that's why they voted for them, and they expected, it's been nearly 2 years, actually. It will be 2 years in April that this government has come on board. Many Senegalese feel, well, 2 years is a significant amount of time for things to have turned around, and the fact that, in their view, the situation in the universities and across society more generally hasn't turned around. That's why we saw the protests.
And also to mention that President Faye himself is fairly young, and that would have appealed as well. So how has he failed to sort of keep this relationship going and lose the sort of goodwill that brought him in the first place?
Absolutely. That's a very important question. In my mind, it's two things mainly. This government, there's been a mismatch between the rhetoric it deployed on the campaign trail, and its ability to actually deliver on those promises, on the pledges it made on the campaign trail. That's one of the problems. And then the other of the problems, I would say it's even that is twofold. There's been the difficult international environment. So much has happened since the government came on board. There's been President Trump has come back into power. The extent of Senegal's debt has been revealed to be much worse than it's been. So internationally, zoning into the domestic front, there's been so many challenges. And then the government has struggled to communicate the extent of those challenges and how they link to domestic problems. So the expectations on the part of the Senegalese people is very much still intact because their living and material conditions haven't really improved. And the government, by and large, has struggled to meet those expectations. And the government, because of its poor communication, is viewed as out of touch by many Senegalese people. And of course, I would be remiss not to mention the sort of challenges in government, namely the confrontation between the president and the prime minister, who were and somewhat still are political allies, but there's been growing pains between them because they're relatively young men who've never really held extensive political office for a long period of time. So there's been a lot of on-the-job training for the both of them.
Okay. We'll keep an eye and see how things unfold in going forward. But Chris Ogunmodede, as always, thank you for your insights.
Thank you very much.